Good morning, everybody. It's Kathy here at the Magical Urban Vegetable Garden. It's Sunday morning, January 21. It's cold, it's snowing, and it's time to talk gardening. And this week, I want to try and help those who keep commenting and asking questions about, how do I know when to start my seeds? What should I be planting now? When should I be doing this? And there's, I really haven't found too many places that actually talk about this. Maybe there is, I just haven't looked for it, but I'm here to help take away this confusion. There is simple ways to calculate all this where you are, and I would like to help make this easy for you. So grab a notebook, pen and paper, your garden planner if you have one, and a calendar so that you can calculate all this out. It's going to be really easy. Don't worry. I know calculation can scare a few people, but oh, hey, Chris, how are you? Good to see you. And we're going to figure out where you are on your planting calendars and what you should be doing. So grab your calendar and your paper, and the first thing I want you to do is Google my growing zone. Now, your growing zone, I've seen a lot of debate on this online between experienced gardeners and beginning gardeners who are really confused. Experienced gardeners saying, oh, it's not really important, It's important. It's not a whole picture for growing a plant, but your growing zones, years ago, the US and Canadian governments, way back when, were putting, or I think specifically the US government and the Canadian government started soon after as well, put together a planting map for different climate zones throughout the US. And it has spread. If you do not live in North America, if you Google my growing zone, I promise you there's ones now for India and the UK and different parts of Europe and South America. You can find your growing zone, okay? Now your growing zone is going to tell you roughly what your coldest winter weather is like. So here, when I look up my growing zone, which tends to be roughly minus 28, minus 30 on average, it can get to that. Some winters it doesn't, but that's usually the coldest. It kind of tells me what sort of hardiness the plants that I need to plant should be if they're perennials, the ones that come back year after year. Some plants are not hardy at all, and others will grow up in the northern tundra, depending on where you are. And this is kind of important information to know. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try planting other things, but you might need a little more information on, what it is to be successful. So first thing, find out your growing zone if you don't know that already. Write it down in your planner. If you have the one that some of you have gotten here, I have a space for it on there. The link is below so you can grab it. And the next thing you're going to do is, decide too, the other really important thing is figuring out in your zone what your climate is like, because this is the big, zones have recently changed, and so they should be updating. Climate is changing. But it's going to give you an idea, at least, of what your average temperatures are. And that could change a lot over the next few years. So you might want to check up on it every so often. The climate changes right now are changing what is growing. So it's good to kind of have an idea, if you're getting new plants, what kind of maybe has the best chances. The next thing you're going to do is, write some notes on what your climate is like. Is it super dry? Is it semi-arid? Do you have cactus growing out in your backyard? Here where I am, it's coastal. We get a lot of rain, so much rain. And that's going to affect the kind of plants that you plant as well. Some types of plants and vegetables absolutely love rainy, cool, damp weather. Celery comes to mind. I mean, it'll practically grow in a swamp if you let it. You know, your Asian greens, lettuces, Swiss chard, spinach, they tend to do well in cool, damp weather. They don't like getting hot and dry. They'll bolt once it starts getting too warm and dry. So those you might need to decide, is that going to be an early spring and late spring crop? And then we plant other things for the summer? Or is it going to be a late summer crop that goes into the fall or even the winter, depending on where you are? Okay, this is how this decides. So write a few notes on what it is that you deal with in your weather. Okay, just so you have an idea. Now, the next thing you're going to plan out is, or Google, is my last frost date. Now, this is a really important one that a lot of gardeners tend to miss, or maybe they've just kind of learned it growing up. They, you know, maybe their parents and grandparents kind of have an average of when it's a good time to plant, and that's okay too. But if you're just not sure where your last frost date is, like when you should be planting stuff outside, depending on the seed, Google it. Google my last frost date. Now here, where I live, the last average frost date is about May 12th, okay? You could plant things out, and I do plant cold hardy stuff that's maybe a little bit frost tolerant, like my spinach and Swiss chard. I'll get it going, and I've got a floating row cover if it happens to get too cold at night, just to keep it. But things like your peppers and tomatoes and all those heat-loving plants are not going to do well outside. You're going to kill them off. They have to have a certain temperature to even germinate, and then they have to have a certain temperature to even, you know, to keep growing, right? So we'll get more into that in another conversation. But you want to find out what your last frost date is, because that is going to, sorry, I have pets who are very interested in what I'm doing here. That's going to tell you when it's safe to plant, you know, most of your stuff outside. So because our date here is about May 12th, everyone uses May long weekend to plant their gardens outside. That's what everybody does here May long, okay? You just know May long weekend that's where everyone who has a garden is going to be. You're going to be doing all your outside stuff for like 4 days. The next thing you're going to Google is your first frost date in the fall. Okay, so mine has a kind of tentative date. It averages between October 12th and I think October 20th. So I just put it in for October 12th to be on the safe side. If you get extra, that's fine. Google you do Memorial Day. See, and that's the difference in so much of the difference in growing zones and your climate and your subclimates. Like there's all kinds of things that go on, but you're looking for the average here. Okay, so my first frost date in the fall I put for October 12th. Now here's where it gets useful. Once you have that figured out, and what you want to do is take your calendar, whether it's in your planner or on your kitchen calendar or whatever it is, okay, and you want to count the days between your first and last frost date. Count those days. That is your growing season. That's your growing season. Okay. Now, when you are looking in your catalogs, and it's not all catalogs use this, more and more are, because it makes it easier, but you know, like West Coast Seeds here, you know, some things are really quick. So you look at like your endives, you're looking 45, 50 days. You can get multiple crops as long as the weather's not too hot. It doesn't like hot weather. If you're looking at something like maybe Scotch bonnet peppers, they have 100-day growing season, I think. And I have 150 if the weather is right and it's not a cold, wet, rainy summer. So if I want to have them start producing earlier, I'm going to get them started earlier so that they can go out at least into the greenhouse at an earlier date, and I get a better crop season out of them, right? This is what you want to do with your outside plantings. If you have a seed that is, your growing season is 100 days, and you're picking seeds that have 150-day growing season, you're not going to get a lot out of them. And we'll get more into that next week. That's going to be next week's Facebook Live. But just know for this person, knowing what your growing season is going to help you a lot, you know, for picking seeds. Now you want to write down, you know, what is your growing type, your soil type, you know, is it clay, is it rock, is it sandy, you know, there's all kinds of things that go into it, you know, that you can help sort yourself out here. But I want to just double check my notes here and make sure I'm not missing anything. Because I think I've covered pretty much everything for this little Facebook Live. But this week, sit down and figure out all this stuff. I'm going to leave this up. You're welcome to message me or send me questions if you have questions on this. But this is going to give you the basics of planting out your seeds. Oh, and here's the other thing. This is what I missed. So when do you plant your seeds now? Okay, so if you have seeds, like I can't just take and plant tomatoes and cucumbers and all those heat-loving things out in the garden until May 21st. Most of them have 50, 75 days before they even start producing. So if I want my seedlings to be at least well started, let's say 6 weeks or 8 weeks, you're going to go to your last frost date and you're going to count back like 6 or 8 weeks, right? Or however big you want your plants to be, and count 2 weeks in there before you start planting them out to harden them off. Hardening them off means that you're starting to put them outside in nice weather. You're getting them used to being outside so that they don't go into transplant shock. By the time you actually put them out into your greenhouse or garden, they're used to the weather and they're not going to just die on you because it's too cold or whatever. So that's how you plan if you want your tomato plants to be big and 12 weeks old and maybe already have blossoms coming on them and everything so that you start getting a crop sooner, then you're going to count back 12 weeks from your last frost date. And that's when you should be planting your seedlings. Does that make sense? You guys can leave me a comment below. I can always expand on it further if I'm just babbling on. But I hope that helps. I would love to hear from you wherever it is you're watching this. And do take care. Let me know if this helps and what else you would like to see Facebook Lives on. And I thank you for being here. Thanks so much, Chris. Good to see you. And I will talk to you all soon. Bye for now.